Can't afford the Vulture or the Reclaimer but you want to do some salvaging? Then this video is for you. Let's start with the Vulture. Currently, I only know one way to obtain it, and it's not difficult. To begin, you need to accept a risky salvage mission. It doesn't matter which one, any of them will work. Once you accept it, a timer will start. Go to the salvage area and let the timer run out. A hostile Vulture will spawn. Engage it. Now the Vulture will do this weird thing where it'll fight you briefly and then just stops and does nothing. This is your opportunity. Shoot the back of the ship with either your ship or your gun. Although if you do it with your gun, it's better to deplete the Vulture's shields and using a ballistic gun. The ramp will open after sustaining enough damage, and that's when you get into the ship. From there, get into the cockpit and kill the pilot. And after getting his body out of the way, the ship is essentially yours. If the Vulture starts moving before you get in, use distortion weapons to disable it and use your ship to block the Vulture from drifting away, although that's easier said than done. Also, if you take too long to kill the pilot, the ship will despawn, even if you're in it. Now there is one tiny problem, and that's the Vulture has no quantum fuel. Now I'm pretty sure the devs implemented that to discourage people from stealing enemy Vultures, but where there's a will, there's a way. Now you have to immediately leave the area, because the pilot's friends will show up, and without quantum fuel, escaping his friends will be difficult. Once you're out of danger, the next step is to refuel your Vulture. Since these missions spawn either around Yela or Hurston's moons, all you need to do is find a surface outpost to refuel. Since I'm at Yela, I would have to go to one of these places. If you're at Hurston, you have to go to one of these places. The flight will take up to 10 to 15 minutes depending on where the mission spawn, but once you're there, land on a pad and refuel. And boom! Just like that, you can now freely salvage with the Vulture. One important thing to note is the ladder doesn't work, so make sure the ramp is open and accessible. Another important thing is, if you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe and ring that bell, because who doesn't love a free Vulture? And stick around because I will be discussing a lot of important details towards the end of the video. Now we move on to Reclaimers, and I know of 3 ways to get a Reclaimer. The first way, which is the easiest, is with Reclaimer derelicts, specifically Black Kite. To get to Black Kite, you have to accept the Seize the Data mission at Microtech. If you want to know how to do this mission, I have a video that will show you how to do it quickly, which you can watch after this video. The reason I mentioned Black Kite specifically is because you can salvage with Black Kite. If you look at Salvage Processing, you'll notice one of the dispensers is open, which means the left side is open for salvaging. In Pride of Arliss, both dispensers are blocked off, and in October Rising, there's no access to the cockpit. Now unfortunately, despite being the easiest, this is also the most restrictive as you can't fly Black Kite. So the only ships you can salvage are your own, and any ship you hijack and fly to Black Kite. And you can't use Black Kite forever. After a while, security ships will show up, and assuming they don't shoot the ship immediately, once you quantum out, Black Kite will be destroyed, so make sure you leave with the salvage. The second way is through bounties. Reclaimers will show up in HRT bounties, but you should do these bounties either in Hurston or Crusader because they can spawn in space. If you're a Crusader, accept HRT bounties in the asteroid belt around Yela. If you're at Hurston, accept bounties at weapon testing sites. To hijack a Reclaimer, it's important for it to be stationary. And to do that, you have to EVA towards it. I've tried a variety of ships to see which one could get me to the Reclaimer the closest. Cool tip, if you scroll all the way down in the game settings, you'll see this option. These values show the minimum distance that guarantees you won't be spotted by other ships, mostly NPCs. So the first ship I tried was the Eclipse, a stealth bomber. Looking at the signature values, I see that I can get as close as about 9 kilometers before enemy ships might see me. Now that's a bit too far. Is there any way to get closer? Well, it turns out you can. Hover vehicles have very small signatures, and in the case of the Dragonfly or the Nox, you can rent them at low prices. But that doesn't mean you should get that close. If you get too close, the Reclaimer might start moving around even if they don't see you. So you should still stop about a couple kilometers away from the ship. From there, you must EVA all the way to the ship. For that, you use Voice Attack. Create a new command and select Key Press. I've calculated that you move about 6 meters per second in space. So if you're, let's say, 4 kilometers away, you should hold the W key for about 670 seconds. I recommend you add an additional button press to extend the AFK timer. Once you're there, shoot the door open. Ballistic guns are recommended because they can go through shields. Then just run to the cockpit and kill the pilot, and if you want, complete the bounty, who is usually located in the drone room. Although if you don't want to lose the ship, don't kill the bounty. Now there's one major problem with this. Even though you have control of the reclaimer, you can't use the elevators. So how do you get to salvage processing without elevators? Well, let me show you. You need 3 of these yellow boxes, which you can find in reclaimer derelicts, wreck sites, and more. And this metal plank, which as far as I know, you can only find in Pride of Arliss in the failed negotiations mission at ArcCorp. For convenience, I'll demonstrate this in the Pride of Arliss derelict, but this should work for any reclaimer. Stack the boxes at the back of the salvage hold like this. Then place the metal plank on top of the stack. This plank will act as a ramp to salvage processing. Then just climb the boxes, walk onto the metal plank, and jump into salvage processing. And there you go. Now the boxes are kind of janky, and they might hurt you, so bring some med pens. You can also use the hover quad or the Nox to get into salvage processing, but hover vehicles act unpredictably in ships in space, so use it at your own risk. The third way is the most expensive, but is the least restrictive. To start, you need to accept the In the Wake of a Disaster mission, which costs 150k. In this mission, there's a 50% chance that you'll encounter a reclaimer, with the other half being a carrot. You can actually take control of the reclaimer, and if you want to know how, I made a video detailing the process, which you can watch after this video. But once you get operational, quantum to the nearest space station. The sheer mass of the ship makes it surprisingly easy to fly despite being heavily damaged. It just takes a while to accelerate and slow down. Once you're there, land the ship on a pad, preferably one of the big ones, and even though it looks like it's too big for the pad, you'll know it's properly landed when you can access the maintenance screen. Now you'll have to pay a large sum of money to repair this thing, but once you do, you're good to go. Everything works. The elevators work, you can salvage with the reclaimer like you own the thing. A neat bonus is that as long as you're tracking the disaster mission, the marker will be on the reclaimer at all times during the session, so you won't lose it. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. Despite the fact that you're getting these ships for free or at a much lower price, you don't own the ship, so you can't use it like you own it. You cannot bed log in these ships, you cannot claim it through insurance, you can't store them in the hangar. In fact, I don't think the game will let you land it in a hangar, and any cargo stored in the ship can't be sold, nor can any cargo be loaded into the ship via terminal because the ship isn't yours. So if you want to sell any salvage that you collected with the Vulture or Reclaimer, you have to bring a cargo ship that you rent or own and store them in there. So if you're using the Reclaimer, you should transport the salvage either to the cargo elevator or the elevator at the back. You can't upgrade the Reclaimer, but you can upgrade the Vulture thanks to the new component gameplay. Just unlock the ship ports, open up the components, and swap them out with new ones. Just know that if you lose the Vulture, all the components will be lost. Now that you got your salvage ship, you'll want to know the best way to use it. And luckily, I made a video on the best way to salvage with the Reclaimer that you can watch right here.